Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high. Get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, September 29th, Monday, September 30th for those of you across the pond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Hope you guys had a rockin' week and an awesome weekend. I am your host, TessaTNT, and we are live tonight on Spreaker, Periscope, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, and TuneIn Radio. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Jeffrey Seelman. And Jeffrey Seelman is a professional clearing expert, teacher, author, psychic, and exorcist. After serving in the United States Air Force, he studied metaphysical thought and philosophy during the 1980s. In 1992, Jeffrey brought his services to the public. Jeffrey clears negative emotional energy as well as negative spirits from individuals, living environments, property, and businesses. He also teaches individuals how to protect themselves from effects of negative emotional energy generated by living people, negative and demonic spirits, and methods to keep ourselves, families, homes, and businesses free and clear of accumulated negative emotional energy from the past and present. Born with psychic ability, Jeffrey has dedicated his life to helping those in need of his services. He has written essays and articles, as well as appearing many times on radio and television, including E! Entertainment Television, Strange Universe, and the Sci-Fi Channel, where he performed a successful exorcism in front of television cameras. Jeffrey, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here tonight.
Tess, thank you very much for having me on We Are Paradox Media.
I'm so grateful that Rick Kirby had introduced us, and I'm just so excited to learn more about you and what you do, because to me, helping people is a really big thing in my book.
Yeah, Rick Kirby is a great guy, great friend from England, and we talk all the time, and also joke around a lot, so we have a lot of fun. So he's a great guy and very, very psychic and very intelligent.
He is that indeed. So, reading your bio, it says that you have been a psychic, or were born with this ability. Did you always know it, or did it take you some time to figure that out?
No, actually, I thought everybody could see spirits. I was really shocked. Now, I didn't know what a spirit was, but I was really shocked when my classmates, when I was, in essentially kindergarten and elementary school here in the USA, that other people were not seeing these essentially beings, because they were very clear to me. And I would tell the teachers and my parents, and I'm seeing these people in the classroom, and some kind of hovering over other students, like they're trying to transmit some information and help them study. And other ones would kind of look at me, maybe like 3 in a classroom or something in the average day. And they would look at me like, how can you see me? And then they'd come at me sort of, they'd kind of, come across the room very quickly. They don't need to walk. They can just, sort of travel. But that was just a percentage. Most of the spirits that I saw were nice, and they were just there to help other people. But sometimes there was one out of the 3 or whatever that was maybe a negative spirit guide of somebody's, and they didn't like the idea that I could see them. And I'd become frightened because I didn't know what they were. And my parents really couldn't explain it to me. And the teachers certainly didn't like it. And, when I was 4 years old, I had a visitation by aliens. And I woke up one night and 2 aliens were in my bedroom. And so that was kind of an experience as well. And so it was a very unusual childhood. what I finally had to do, the cure for this, unfortunately, I'm 60 years old now, and so when I was, this was the early 1960s. We're talking 1963, 64. I was losing friends. I mean, I was not making any friends. People, was like, what? And you're not seeing this? And no. And so I decided to shut up and not say anything at all. And of course, I could see these things. And also, my mother told me something I kind of forgot, Tess. She's dead now. She's been dead for about 20 years. But one thing she told me before she died, and she died with her mind completely intact. But something I forgot was that I would always tell her, like, hey, Grandma's going to call tomorrow at 3:10. And then at 3:10 tomorrow, she'd call. And it was something I'd really forgotten, because I had, these multiple talents going on. And what I did was I just didn't talk about it anymore. And I ended up having a lot of friends. I never mentioned it to them. What I was really good at, how I used my psychic abilities as a child and also as a teenager, was that I had what many of your listeners could relate to, is essentially intuition or warnings about danger. And it used to be called, with no disrespect, women's intuition. But the idea is that I would always know when trouble was coming. I still do. But the idea is that in high school, the kids would pull me out of class because they'd be smoking various things outside. This is the 70s now, outside of the school, right outside of the school. And that could not happen today, but anyways, we were doing that, and sometimes they'd have me come outside, and sometimes I'd join in, sometimes I would not, but I could give them a 30-second warning. I'd say, someone's going to come out that door, that is a teacher or the principal, or the police will drive by, because the high school was on a very busy street, on a corner of a very busy street. And I would be able to tell them, and they'd say, let's bring Jeffrey out. He's kind of like a warning bell. But we never talked about it. We just simply, it was like I was always right. And so therefore, I never got caught doing anything.
Well, that's a bonus.
It is.
I had the same experience as you as far as school, because to me and my family, this stuff was normal. But as soon as you'd share it with people that you thought were your friends, like you said, you didn't have friends anymore, so you just kind of learned to keep it to yourself. And I kind of refer to it as putting myself in the paranormal closet and closing the door and not sharing it until I've known someone for a while, and perhaps they've had experiences too. But it was difficult as a kid and not having friends, because I was the weird one. But yeah, for you to be able to pick up on that as somebody is approaching and nobody could see them, that's pretty awesome.
Well, yeah, and I was actually tested. My parents had me tested eventually in the mid-'60s. They didn't really know what to do. They put electrodes on my head, had me over in the hospital for a day or two, and I didn't sleep because I never slept anyways when I was a kid. And so, but they just said, whatever their diagnosis was kind of an ESP type thing. But it just wasn't popular in the 1960s, as far as they had really neat shows like The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits in the United States. And so, but that was the stuff of television and not something that was discussed out in the open. I imagine there were probably lots of psychic kids around, and it was just something that the teachers didn't want to hear it. It scared them. It didn't scare my mother, because she had psychic abilities. I learned later on in life, and she was very psychic and always believed me and understood what I was going through, but she didn't really know what to do. But the cure, like I said, was to not talk about it when I was growing up. This is more acceptable today. So we're talking 1964. And so it was very difficult, and the teachers did not want me in their classrooms, because I would say, who is that? who's where? I thought maybe I was seeing something, that wasn't there. I thought everybody could do that. Also, I was able to remember all of my dreams. Now, thankfully, that is something that I kind of shut off many years ago because it was just too much. But when I was very young, I thought everybody could remember every single one of their dreams. And so I was also shocked at that one. I said, well, don't you remember what you did last night? No, I remember a little bit. I remember, a little bits of a dream or something. I said, well, no, I remember the whole thing. I remember what I was doing completely. And not like a lucid dreaming so much. It was more of just simply remembering all the little adventures I would go on. And so it was a difficult time for me. Plus, I went to the same elementary school in the 1960s as both my parents did. And it was a very beautiful brick building, but also a very old school. And there was a lot of emotional energy from students being in there for 40, 50 years, whatever it was. And I'd pick up on that. I'd pick up on the emotional energy of the students, and I was very uncomfortable in the classroom. So it was really, all I could do was sit in there and look out the window. Tess, I would look out the window and I would look at the clock. The two things I would look at. Out the window and at the clock. And the teachers would say, Jeffrey, are you paying attention to your, school book stuff, whatever? And I'm like, what? No, I just want to get out of here. And I never really did like school because of that, and it never really went away, and I did well. I didn't do well in school. I did better in college, but I didn't do very well in school because of that. I never really applied myself very much, and eventually went into the Air Force, United States Air Force.
And thank you so much for your service. When you were in the Air Force, did you have paranormal experiences there, or did you ever experience any UFOs or aliens? What exactly was your job?
I can tell you just some of it. That I was stationed out at Nellis Air Force Base for most of my tour. That is called Area 1. And I was essentially, I was a cook. I was supposed to be a communications expert, but I smarted off to the FBI during my top security clearance thing.
Oops.
more than one. Oops is right. And ended up, they said, we're just going to make you a cook. That's, we had enough of you after 3 days of grilling me in basic training. At the end of it, they said, you know what, we're just going to make you a cook. And I said, okay, well, I don't really care anyway. I was going to be, they said, you'd be perfect at communications and intercepting communications from hostile foreign governments. We're going to have you work on that because you pick up everything. I scored in the top 3 percentile of my test in communications. And so the Navy and the Air Force both wanted me so badly they took me out for dinner. And so, but the idea is that, it was true, but the idea is that I was stationed out at Area 1, and I did travel to some of the other bases because they needed sometimes people to cook at different bases. And so I was around that stuff. I'm especially just talking to people who are working on those things as far as UFOs go, crashed UFOs and stuff. So I learned, if you're a cook, you get to know people. I mean, I worked around mostly officers. They didn't have many enlisted men. It was mostly officers. And so, they would tell me things. And so, that's, kind of, I learned a lot about that. Certainly we had that stuff going on. And so I know that when they were the group that went out, a small group last week, whenever it was, to storm Area 51, I'm sure you heard about that.
Yeah.
I actually wrote them a letter, a couple of months ago, and I said, don't do it. I said, number one, that stuff is not sitting out. And it's not sitting out for you to find, and it's scattered around. And it's already been outsourced to different bases. People don't really get that. it's something that kind of really freaks me out about the whole thing. Area 51, that's 51 different bases, not including the ones that they don't call an area. They outsourced them to different areas long ago when I was in the service. So I was thinking, what are you guys doing? Everybody's looking at Area 51. Maybe they have stuff underground. I don't know. But the idea is that when I was in the service, they'd already outsourced that to different bases, different areas. And so I'd met people who told me all about it, and so, even offered to show it to me if I wanted to see it. It's just the penalty for doing that could be death. They can shoot you legally.
Right.
And they will. Now, I don't think they would do that anymore. But when I was in right after the Vietnam War. It's a big desert out there. So I emailed that group and saying, look, your intentions are good, but believe me, what they have is not sitting out on the runways. And if it is, it's not a UFO. And so the idea being that you're not going to get access, you don't have the codes, you don't have the passes, and they will stop you. And they did. And so it's like, why bother? It's almost like better if you just go and make a protest thing, or something, than try to break into Area 51 because the Air Force is not going to let you on their bases.
Yeah, and that's kind of basically what happened. There's different videos of people there at the gate and doing their different protests and wearing their masks and whatever else, and checking out different locations around the area, and there was a lot less people that showed up than originally thought, but I think everybody kind of thought about it. They do have every right to defend this base. It is government property, and for people to just think, well, if there's a ton of us, some of us will die, but some of us can get through, but it's just kind of ignorant to me, and like you're saying, people have been on to Area 51 for a while, so of course they're going to move around their pieces to different areas and locations where people aren't knowledgeable about. They don't know where it's gone.
Yeah, it was more about the idea of getting it into the hands of proper engineers, and it was not so much hiding it. It was a matter of because no one's getting on those bases anyway. So it was more of the idea of getting it to the proper engineers to do reverse engineering. So, I talked to the people about it, and when I talked to commanding officers about it, they simply said that the public was not ready to be told this information. I think the Air Force actually is pretty good. I can't complain about the Air Force, so much. Okay, they have not released very much information about UFOs, although they did do something in the last couple of weeks, as you probably saw in the paper, but they felt the same way about guns, that, civilians shouldn't have guns because they don't know how to use them or they don't know when not to use them. And so they felt the same way about UFOs, was that the public, it would simply disturb the public so much that, and also, that it was an ego thing. They didn't, the idea of they didn't know what they were. And as far as I'm concerned, I've never seen any evidence at all, that any of our technology's got anything to do with any aliens. It's just good hard work from Microsoft and all the rest of it. But when I was around, one of the things that people would tell me was that they didn't even know what the stuff was made of. We don't have the counterpart of here on Earth, and this is stuff that people would tell me who were actually working on these things. They simply could not figure out even what the stuff was made of, much less how it worked. And so I think the idea of outsourcing was not to hide it. It was simply to scatter it so that proper people could take a look at it on different bases. Nobody could get on there anyway, any of these bases. You just simply cannot do it. They have guards with guns, and you have to have IDs and security clearances, and they're authorized to shoot, to kill. Although that's not what they do. I don't think they've really ever done that. That as far as they don't want to shoot anybody. I really think that the military actually is pretty good. It's not just because I was in there. It's just that, they're also working on advanced weaponry and radar systems. And if you look out in Las Vegas, you probably heard the Janet flights, right?
Right.
Okay. Essentially, that's not a secret. The Janet Terminal is right next to McCarran Airport. I lived down in Las Vegas twice. I just moved back a couple of years ago. And I used to watch the Janet flights fly over my apartment every day. The 7 flights would take off, and they'd come back in the afternoon, sometimes escorted by flighters if there's probably a dignitary on them or something. Not all to do with UFOs. I mean, they're working on drones and all that kind of stuff too, and all these interesting things I think that we need. And but it's not a secret that that terminal exists. You just can't get onto the terminal. It's right next to the airport. And of course, they fly the 737s, and they have a red stripe and no markings, and they're known by not call numbers like something. They're known by flight WWW1237 type thing. This is like common knowledge. It's really not a secret, and it's just, they're not going to show us stuff, unfortunately, until they're ready, and I'm hoping that they are at some point ready. But like I said, I was never upset with them about that because much as I love everybody out there, there's some evidence that we maybe can't handle it. I think, they tried to explain it to me when I was back in the late 70s and early 80s, that they felt that the average person could not handle reality. Could not handle the concept that there's something out there, because most religions teach there is not. We're the center of the universe, and therefore there's nothing else out there, and that would shake us up too bad. And I disagree with that, but I understood where they were coming from. I also understood they were not going to change their mind, because they're not in it for 4 years or 6 years like our government officials. These are lifers. These are people who have been in it for 20 or 30 years. And they're very serious people, and they still are. And I do respect them. I actually understand where they're coming from a little bit. We can't even get along with each other, much less the idea of, aliens, because, they're probably not going to look like us. It's not going to be necessarily the Steven Spielberg type of, friendly alien type thing and cute alien M&M type thing. But the idea that they're going to look very different. I think a really good example, real quickly, before you move on, is just that if you take a look at the wonderful movie Arrival, and I know your fans out there are probably seeing that and going, yeah, I've seen it. It's a great movie. And it is a great movie. I think that's kind of closer to the truth. They didn't know what the ship was made of. They were so astounded by the idea that, that the aliens looked different, and very different. And also they communicated telepathically, which affected people who had telepathic abilities, kind of like they said, the universal language. And the fact is, the movie was kind of realistic insofar as that we didn't handle it. We tried to kill them. We almost started a world war. It was like, we can't even get along with each other, with our skin color differences, with our religious differences. We're killing each other over that right now. How the hell are we going to get along with aliens if we can't get along with each other? Why would they land in Central Park or Trafalgar Square or Red Square, or Berlin or something? Why would they do that? Because all we've really done is shoot at them. I don't think we're really doing that so much anymore. But we used to. A long time ago, we used to shoot at them, and with our aircraft. And so the idea is that, if I was an alien, I would be pretty careful who I talk to. Now, I think there are a lot of aliens around, and I speak about that in my book, because half the stuff that I know were taught to me by aliens, and they don't always come in physical form, but sometimes through astral traveling, either from their spaceships or from their home planet. And they do look very different, so different that it's astounding. and uh, I think that we need to, kind of be kinder to each other and kind of get over this time we're going through right now. I think they're really more here to try besides studying other life forms. There's a lot of life forms on the planet. I think they're here to help us. I also think they're contacting individuals, and I think they're contacting groups, small groups of people that they think can help. I don't think they're really in contact with our government. There's no evidence that I've ever seen besides people saying things. But there's nothing out there that says that any aliens are in contact with the very people that were shooting at them. More likely they'd be contacting people that wouldn't shoot at them, and all of that. So I may be wrong. I mean, there's a lot of people, whistleblowers that have said, we're doing this or we're doing that. But I'm talking about live aliens, that are not hostile, because, some people are hostile and some aliens are probably hostile, but that's not the ones we want to meet. And so, but yeah, it's definitely happening. And I really hope that the most likely scenario is that a ship or two would land in a public place, and then it simply would be undeniable. I think that will happen. When, I don't know. But I think that's what I predict anyway, that they're simply going to land in a public place, and it'll be obvious, and because the government is, maybe going to release things piecemeal, and maybe they won't.
Do you think,
I don't know,
that a reason so many of these shows are out there, like Ancient Aliens and Contact and The Unexplained, so on and so forth, is to kind of educate us through the media and to get us used to the idea of aliens and UFOs, or do you think it really has nothing really to do with it?
No, I think you're correct. It does. I think they are trying to get us used to the concept of outer space. We are a very unique race. I know people talk about, we're not so advanced or whatever. We may not be mature as a race, but we're certainly becoming very advanced. There's no other life form on the planet Earth that builds skyscrapers, airplanes, cars, and spaceships. Why do we want to go into outer space in the first place? It really says a lot about the human race that we do have contact with them and maybe some kind of history with them. For all I know that maybe we were dropped off here. There was a really great article in the news a couple of days ago about the idea that scientists now are looking seriously, because of our craft we sent, that Venus at one time was much cooler and had water on it. And something happened, and I posted that on Facebook. I thought it was a very interesting story and very scientific, and so it's very possible that aliens had something to do with, why we're here. Maybe they brought us here, or maybe they seeded the planet in some way. But we certainly are very unique. And I'm not cutting down whales and dogs and cats and all the rest of it, but I've always been able to see souls. And spirits are souls. It's not a battery inside of us. It's not a light inside of us. When my clients ask me, and I have clients all over the world, when they ask me what my soul looks like, I say, just go look in the mirror. Look into your eyes, because your soul is everything besides your physical body. It's your personality. It's your emotional system. It's your, all your feelings, and everything that you are besides your physical body. And so it's kind of portrayed differently in religious theology, where essentially the soul is something that can be destroyed, which is not true. It's indestructible, and also that the personality dissipates or turns into some big ball of personalities. Not true. And I remember a few of my deaths that were induced by my spirit guides. It was not in, some kind of therapy or something like that, or, done that way. But I certainly have had a lot of contact from spirits and aliens that have really done a lot of different weird things to me. And one of them was, almost, make me remember my death so that later on, I could help people. And I know that what it's like to die. And I know that it's kind of like what some of the near-death experience people are saying. If you kind of study that stuff, their stories are all the same with a little bit of variation test, It's kind of like you would not know that you're dead unless you looked down and saw your body lying there. That's how much you change. It's like you wouldn't even know that you're dead at first. You'd get it after a while. But the idea that, your physical body and your spirit are two separate things. They're connected while we are alive, but your spirit is not dependent upon your physical body, and it's not a light and cannot be sold to Satan and all that kind of stuff. That's just mythology, and that's not what happens. And so it's got more to do with bad guesses in religion and people who didn't know what they were doing in the first place. And it's kind of a shame, that so many priests are not psychic, that they simply go and say, well, look, here's the book, whatever religion it might be, that here's the book, and so therefore that's what it is. And I'm like, sorry, if you actually had any psychic ability, you'd realize that none of that was really true. That's, they were just making that stuff up because they didn't know, they couldn't explain things. In my work, I try to explain exactly what spirits are, the different kinds of spirits, and how our own spirit operates inside of our physical system, and what happens when we die. So I do a lot of that. It's not just exorcisms and clearings and all of that. I do a lot of teaching and try to help people learn how to protect themselves from negative spirits and also the negative emotional energies that are given off by people, all of us. And we don't see it, but it's there. For some reason, I can see it, and I think other people can see it. But like spirits don't look translucent to me so much as they do. They look very whole to me. And so I can tell the difference between a spirit and a human being, but sometimes people see more of the outline of things. And of course, there's a difference between spirits and ghosts. Ghosts being essentially, a good example would be if a lady lives in a house for 30 years and she walks from her bedroom and makes to the kitchen every morning and makes tea or coffee. That a person with psychic ability or using an EVP machine or something like that would pick that up. And that does not mean that it's happening in real time, though. And that's what I consider to be a ghost. It's a impression made on the atmosphere. But a spirit is actually anybody without a physical body. Simple as that. It takes the fear out of the whole thing. This big mystery of what is a spirit? We become something else. No, we don't. We're already a spirit. We just happen to be spirits with a physical body. Spirits just don't have a physical body. And so, as you probably know, Tess, that most people do not report seeing naked spirits. That's very interesting since they don't have sexual organs or any kind of physical organs. And so the idea being, people ask me, why do spirits wear clothing and how do they do that? Well, they generate clothing. It's kind of like a visualization thing. They generate how they look. So if your grandmother dies at 85 years old, she can generate an image as a spirit that makes her look any way she wants to look, maybe the way she looked when she was 25. They also generate clothing. Why do they do that? Because spirits like to look good. We don't lose our sense of wanting to look good when we die and wanting to have a nice appearance. That does not go away. And so things don't really change as much as we think they do. And so we generate clothing through the process of visualization. Visualization on a physical level, I can't visualize myself going from Colorado to Milwaukee and making it happen. I have to go to the airport. And but spirits can on a non-physical level. There are also natural laws, and so it operates differently over there. And so if you want to, like, say, eat some food, you're not really eating food. You're eating energy that you shape into what looks like food, and actually you can make and charge it so it makes it positive for you to eat, because people still like to eat, and you don't really need to eat. But the idea is that when you're kind of haven't been dead very long, when you're on the other side, non-physical reality is what I really call it, because I think everything is really science, that people don't like changing their habits that much. And so they want to look good, they want to continue eating, and so they do, but they're really generating energy that's everywhere on the other side. It's not like a pool or a lake or something they siphon. It's everywhere. And so it's kind of effortless. They just have to remember how to do it. And most of the spirits we see around the earth either are spirit guides that come down and help us, and they go back up, or wherever you want to call it. And then you have problematic spirits that were negative, or they had problems in their life psychologically, emotionally, and maybe they're very upset that they were wrong about, you're going to hell because, you're gay, or you're from a different religion, or all the different things that people think. And when they see that that's not true, they become angry. Now, some people deal with it, and it's like, oh, okay, I was wrong, I'm glad. Some people don't deal with it very well, and they end up rebelling kind of and attacking people, living people. And some people are just plain criminals, and they were in life, and they were harming people in life, and just being really bad people. And when they die, they continue to do that because they can't be seen by us. And so they come into our houses, condos, apartments, and businesses and try to affect us on an emotional level. Most of the attacks are emotional in nature, psychological and emotional attacks. If spirits could knock over cars, like in Hollywood movies or whatever, they would. But they can't, not even demonic spirits. Demonic spirits are essentially the counterpart of angelic spirits, meaning that they have about the same amount of power. They're very old spirits, and they're very powerful, and they know how to do damage to people, meaning when they come into your house or business or around you, they can actually influence you through rage and anger that they generate, and also telepathy, meaning thoughts, ideas, and concepts, to get you to do things you would not normally do. One of the most common forms of possession is when people overdose on alcohol or drugs. And I'm not against alcohol or drugs, but I mean overdose, and they black out, and then they lose it, and they kind of step out, and something comes in very quickly, and then that's when somebody gets hurt. That's not the case in every scenario. It's only a percentage test, but it is something that happens. And so it's a very complicated thing, but it's also something that I can explain in great detail. One of the things that I'd like to do with my clients and people when I go on radio or television or whatever is that I like to explain things in very, very great detail and scientific terms so that people understand how things really work and not some mythology or fantasy. As you probably have already guessed, as I gave a very long answer to your question. So, sorry. It's kind of like you got to kind of stop me from talking because, I'll go on, but the idea is that it's not good to be afraid of spirits. The idea, that's what they want. In negative spirits I'm talking about. Positive spirits, which make up 90% of all spirits, would never hurt you or never try to interfere in your life. They only try to help. They don't live in your home. Why would they do that? And people tell me, over the last 28 years that I've been doing this kind of work professionally. Well, I have this old lady who lives in my house and she bakes cookies and all the rest of it. And I said, get her out. That's crazy. Why would a spirit live in your home and bake, cookies or whatever? It doesn't make any sense. It's problematic, because if somebody knocked on your door, an old lady, I'm using that as an example, a kindly old looking lady, a grandmother type. Oh, can I come and live with you? No, you can't.
Right.
I mean, you're a nice old lady, whatever, but grandmotherly type. But the fact is, we wouldn't do it on a physical level. Why would we do it on a spiritual level or with spirits? We don't want spirits living in our home. Why would they do that? When our spirit guides come down to teach us something, whether they be terrestrial type spirits who have been on the earth or alien spirits or aliens to our astral traveling, that's also very common. There's lots of planets out there that they would come down and teach us something or transmit some information, help us in some way. And they do. They do these kinds of things. And then they leave. They want to give us our privacy. They don't want to scare us. They don't want us, stare at us. They're not living in our homes. What's the ones that who do these kinds of things, I call negative spirits. And those are essentially criminal type spirits that are trying to cause problems in families and between significant others. And unfortunately, because there are so many people on the planet Earth and so many spirits, that it's actually more common than we think. And what's happening in our world today, right now in 2019 as we speak, is a perfect feeding ground for negative spirits because they have an easy job. We're already getting negative on each other. Now, I'm not talking about your listeners here. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Anybody who's read the news knows that we have real problems all over the world right now. People are not getting along with each other. We can't agree on, if the earth is in trouble or whatever, all these things. And, I don't like the color of your skin. I don't like your sexuality. I don't like your religion, all this kind of thing. And this is a perfect feeding ground for negative spirits to come in and finish the job and attack people that essentially, and get them to do things they would not normally do. Like I say, a couple is arguing. That's when a negative spirit might come in and try to up that argument into something physical. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I'm not saying they're making us blind. I'm saying that, that they would essentially amplify our emotional states in a negative way, where positive spirits, which are much more common, do come down and talk to people in our dream state. I believe all dreams are real. They're just not on a physical level. And because people ask me all the time, why do I do these weird things when I'm sleeping if dreams are real? And the answer is very clear. It's actually because you're not fully conscious when you're sleeping. You're actually, part of you is still laying on the pillow or wherever you sleep, and you're still conscious of that. So only about 50 to 75% of your consciousness is actually active during the dream state. And that's why we do these weird things and we don't act normally. But we do come in contact with people who are other people who are sleeping, and also spirits when we're in the dream state. And so what I liken this to the other side, what people call heaven, which is a fine name for it. It's a very beautiful name. Other side, spiritualists call it summer land, I think, summer. And then there's lots of names for it, but that's kind of like our natural home. And the earth plane, or the physical plane itself, is kind of like a school. It's a big padded room where we can't really hurt each other. I mean, as far as we're not really going to die, no matter how terrible things we do to each other. That essentially you can't kill somebody. You can kill their body. That's it. So the earth is kind of like school, and dreams are recess. And so we need that time every night or whenever we can to kind of go and let our minds be free from the physical and let our body rest. It needs rest. But our minds also need to separate from staring at the physical world, which is just a very tiny slice of reality.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Was that a shorter answer?
I like them all because I agree with a lot of what you're saying and have experienced a lot of this. But I was noticing in our chat room, going back to aliens, Skywatcher was asking if the government is using the ancient aliens as a backdoor light disclosure medium, does that mean that Linda Moulton Howe is in with the government?
I'm not sure who that is. So if you could just let me know who is Linda Moulton Howe?
She actually goes to a lot of conferences and has been on many shows on the History Channel, so on and so forth. She's got darker colored curly hair, glasses. I've heard a lot of good things about her, but I've heard from other people different, not so positive things.
Well, but the government's afraid. I mean, as far as, look, for one thing, I like our military because they protect us. I mean, they're really not, they're doing a good job. We need to be protected because there are hostile forces out there that would see any country fall. I'm not talking about just the United States. I mean everyone, because my clients are from all over the world, and so when I speak speak about the whole world. But these things, I think that the military, especially in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when they were really looking at this stuff, that were very frightened of these things because they could not be tracked very well, and it was hard to bring them down. They had bigger guns, and there's some ego going on there, meaning that it's like, wow, there are things out there, and the military has seen them. We have lots of case histories of people seeing things, and the military is seeing things, and airline pilots and astronauts, and they're really seeing these things. And but the idea is that it scares people in power because it says they have bigger weapons than we do, and we can't let the civilians know that there are things flying out around the earth from who knows where that have better aircraft than we have and have bigger guns, and they might use them. And so the idea being that it really was ego, that people who were in charge. I think things are different today, but people in the 40s and 50s and 60s and maybe in the early 70s, I don't know, they were very frightened about the idea of letting people know that there were more powerful sources or more powerful forces out there. And so it was really a big thing, and like I said, it really was ego. And so it does play into it. I know it sounds really pathetic, but it's also very true. That they just don't want us to know that we're not completely in charge. That our military aircraft, which are really great, as far as we got some pretty good stuff out there, and so does Russia and China and other countries, very highly technological weapons and stuff to protect different countries. I'm not against that, but the idea is that they still are unable to do anything about craft, people who are able to travel from different solar systems and different galaxies, and we're not able to we don't have craft that's that advanced. So like I said, when I was in the Air Force, I met people who were working on reverse engineering and on the very stuff. And they said they could not even figure out what the stuff was made of, much less how it worked.
I'm guessing unobtainium, which is a metal we can't obtain.
Right. I mean, it's just, it's designed essentially, for their purposes, maybe to make their ships, more easily travel through however they're getting here. I never really believed that it had anything to do with the speed of light. The idea that they go into suspended animation. That's kind of how Hollywood sees it. I think that they found a shortcut, a method of propulsion to get from point A to point B much quicker, and perhaps that technology is for sale. One thing that there was an article in the news just last week. This is a very hot topic, and they were talking about the 13 reasons why we have not yet communicated with radio signals, at least they've released, with aliens. And it's I, for one thing, one of the reasons really made the most sense to me is that if you take a look at our position in the Milky Way galaxy, we are on the very edge of it. We are essentially living on the North Pole. And so there's a lot more going on in the center of our galaxy. And so we're just one planet out of like billions of planets. And so but I do think there's a lot of aliens of different kinds on the planet Earth. Certainly they talk to me, and as I said, I've been very honest in my audiobook that I wrote in 2013 in my experiences that they do talk to people, and they are capable of traveling, and they don't all look like us. And I also think that most of them are very friendly. They don't like to be shot at. And I think they're trying to help us not destroy ourselves right now. I think that's one of the reasons some of them are here. And I think at any given time, there might be 50 different races of aliens. We don't know where they come from. People say they know, but I mean, the idea is that really, they come from somewhere else in many different planets and many different places, and they're not all the same. It's not like 3 races or something like that, and one only has to study the science, of it, and what even like the Air Force and people have reported, so many different kinds of ships. It's not like just flying saucer type things, I mean, we have lots of different kinds of ships out there. So I think that they're around, and lots of people have seen UFOs, and I think it's very valid. I don't think they're experimental ships from the government, because they would not fly in view of the public. There are aliens out there, and they do try to contact people, and I think mostly for positive reasons, although I think there are negative aliens out there, and I think we're being protected. During the 1990s, I was asked twice to speak at 2 UFO conventions. I declined both times. And the reason, it was abductee conventions, actually, to be specific. And I was thinking at the time, how can I go up there and say all of my experiences with aliens have been good? When I woke up when I was 4 years old and 2 of them were in my room, I was 4 years old. They woke me up. I was sleeping. They woke me up. They had some technology on their chest. It looked to me like it was hanging there, but it was kind of dark in my room. It was kind of hard to tell. I did have the door cracked, so there was some light. But they had some wonderful technology on there. And that's what really drew my eye to everything. It wasn't so much, it was obvious they were aliens. I mean, it was, they didn't look nothing like us. They were not Earth creatures. Why? They had technology. They had, self-illuminating lights on their chest, probably to do many things, travel back to their spaceship or where they came from. Maybe, the ability to get out of my parents' house, which they did, because they certainly didn't go past me when I ran out screaming, "Mom, there are aliens in my bedroom." They did not attack me. It was kind of interesting because I thought it was a giant spider with giant eyes, but actually it was lights. They had lights on their chests, and what happened was they must have been able to read my mind or something, because when I thought that, I really was scared. I sat up in my bed, and then one of them moved over away from the other one around the side of my bed, and I really believe I didn't feel any hostile intent. Remember, I was born with psychic ability, and I was very good at reading hostile intent from people. And I didn't get any hostile feelings. it was more the idea of, okay, it's not a giant spider. We're actually two different beings, and these are lights on us. And my vision was clearing as the seconds went on, and so why were they there? Were they, I think probably they were always working on me. I know they were when I was an adult. I had many experiences, but and they taught me some of the best stuff that I know about how to do exorcisms and clearing. But the idea is that why would they wake me up? Why not keep me asleep if they were working on me or whatever? I always thought they wanted me to know that they were there, because later on, many years later, when I would start my work in 1992, and this is 1963 when this happened, that I would think back and say, wow, these kinds of beings have always been in my life. And that one thing I've learned about aliens and working with them personally is that they also have families, and they also have emotions. They have a sense of humor. They're not stoic like they are portrayed in most of our movies, having nothing but a mission, that they want to go home. They miss their families or traveling, and so they're, besides looking different and being more advanced technologically, that they're very much like us. Very much like us.
Well, I hate to interrupt because I just love learning from you and what you're saying, but we do have to go to our first commercial break. And our commercial breaks are actually music breaks, and so the artist we'll be listening to this break is Tracy Cruz, who is from the Bay Area, and we also have Fluid, who is from the West Coast. You guys enjoy, and we'll talk to you in just one moment.
Your love empowers me. It gives me the energy to move beyond my capabilities. There is no limit to what your love can do.
I feel chemistry whenever you're close to me, and I cannot explain your energy, 'cause you're pulling me like gravity. It feels so strong, I cannot escape your electricity. This rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. This rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. Physical built and put down has been shattered, and then I'm left without any clue to know the real truth about what I found. But with you I found my common ground. Your love makes me emotional, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. You make me feel that love is real, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. Ever since I was young, my mom said makes you strong when everything goes wrong and you can't go on. I believe the love you have for me surpassed infinity. That's why you're all I see. Your love makes me emotional, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel so emotional. 'Cause you're the one that makes me feel. Your love makes me emotional. Your love, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel so emotional. Love is real, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel. What you have is magical. We feel so emotional. You move me so I can't let go. I can't let go. You touch my soul, I can't let go. I can't let go. 'Cause what we have is magical. Your love's emotional. Your love makes me emotional. You're the one that makes me feel emotional. Can't you see you do something to me? Oh, I can't let go. You make me feel, your love's emotional, so emotional, so emotional. It feels so real to me. It feels so real to me. It feels so real to me. It feels so real, yeah. Makes me feel, emotional.
I love it. Said I love it. I love it. Keep an extendo in my right hand, big band in my left hand. I'm ballin', making buckets back to back like I was Stefan. Better yet, I'm Dale Jackson, so don't treat me like the next man. And I'm kind of a real big deal, so don't be out here second guessing. Anyway, I make my pay and live this California lifestyle. Sunshine, loud packs, and chicks that love to get wild. That's how we do it every day. Slipping, sliding through the traffic on a mission for the day. Clearing marks about my way. Really got no time for y'all today. And all the craziness y'all talk, but never get your story straight. See me out here living great. I don't give a about all that hate. And when it comes to kicking game, I give you all that you can take. Trying to do it big, got no complaints. Every morning eating steak. They say I'm wrong for showing out, but I'ma do it anyway. Plus, and thing ain't nothing big, 'cause I can do it any day. And it don't matter where I go, I always represent the yay. I'm so in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Boppers used to hate me, now they tell me I'm they tight now. Swagger through the roof, got everybody on my height now. So in love with this lifestyle. And I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. See me, I'm out here getting it and loving how I live. Best believe if I do something, I'm a stupid, do it big. And this hustling is my gig, so don't you ask me what I stand for. Stacking while I'm macking, trying to earn myself a couple Lambos. Yeah, you know them toys for them big boys. Emperor of sorts and all you other players decoys. Meaning you're not the real deal. Keep an appetite for dollars that I never miss a meal. All you suckers need to chill. I'm just trying to stack a meal and pull the baddest bras around and love shorty sex appeal. Little bit of Netflix, then we chill. Lose them clothes, keep on them heels. Working like a 9 to 5 and go right back to chasing skrill. I bring that real, never that phony. BS, y'all be stressing, put it down just like an OG. Perform these cookies, take flight. Some of y'all just out here acting. I'm a boss in real life. I'm so in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Boppers used to hate me, now they tell me I'm a tight now. Swagger through the roof, got everybody on my height now. So in love with this lifestyle. I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Keep it more 100 than a C note. Hall of Fame spitting, representing with these pimp quotes. Don't try to front, you know this shit's dope. Question is, will I ever fail? My answer is no. I make this hustling look amazing. Put it down, doper than a blunt of purple hazing. Spicy on the mic, I bring the fire like a Cajun. Scoville, making haters sweat when I be blazing. Leaning to the side, haters everywhere. Yeah, I hear them talking, but they simply wasting air. Can't understand the reason that they stay in my affairs. But I'm major with my movements, getting money everywhere. I'm so in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Boppers used to hate me, now they tell me I'm a tight now. Swagger through the roof, got everybody on my height now. So in love with this lifestyle. I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. So in love with this lifestyle. I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now.
Hey guys, welcome back and thanks so much for listening tonight. Tonight we have Jeffrey Seelman on. Jeffrey, welcome back. And yeah, we were talking about that last question from our chat room. Did you want to try to take another whack at that?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand. I don't know that person, and so I wanted to know about the back, what the person meant, because I do want to answer this person's question. If you could explain it, or they could explain it again, or you can see it, exactly. Okay, I don't know that person, but what are they getting at that she's saying that's different than me, or what I'm saying? As far as I just wanted to know.
Yeah, she's just basically doing different conferences and different shows, and I believe she's also written a few books, but she talks a lot about aliens and UFOs, so on and so forth, and she seems to be very knowledgeable and have a lot of information. I think he was just wondering, do you think these people that are on these shows, including Linda Moulton Howe, are somehow working for the government?
I think there could be a percentage, but I think I have certainly met a lot of people who are experts on UFOs, and Paolo Harris. We've spoken at length, and she's spoken in front of the United Nations about UFOs, and I do think that most of them are genuine. And they have lots of good information. I'm only offering, my particular opinion on that. I don't know I'm not privy to every little thing that's happening. I was in the Air Force a long time ago, but like I said, when I was in the Air Force, we were working on reverse engineering of UFOs, crashed UFOs, crashed. Not in whole pieces.
Right.
And so the idea is that, that is kind of a given, but, as far as are we working with aliens or whatever, the real question is, are aliens working with us? And I really, the people who have said, certainly, that they have worked at some of these bases, and this is going on and that is going on, and I think some of that is genuine. Yeah. It could be, and like I said, I was in many years ago, and since then things might have changed, and maybe I don't really think we're shooting at them anymore, and so maybe there's more of uh, a likelihood of them actually speaking to our government. We were very hostile towards aliens in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and hostile to people uh, uh, who would speak out, and hostile to people who saw anything about it, including threatening them, with their lives and destroying their careers and everything, and all that stuff. So, but do I think that some people could be working with the government, maybe to discredit by giving false information? It's possible. I don't know if the government has all that much interest in that anymore, because if you notice, there are no giant UFOs 15 miles wide flying over our major cities and blowing them up. We've had no reports of them doing anything like that. So whatever they're here for, it's not to destroy us. One of the things that I think about when if I was an alien race, I mean, we could do this, much less aliens, Tess. If I was going to take down the human race, I would simply introduce a biological agent that would kill every living thing that I wanted to kill. It would be specialized, just humans or just, whatever. And then they would, we'd be dead in a month, and they would come down and simply do what they want. They would not start blowing up major cities. It would just create a mess. Everybody would scatter. A lot more work. Why not just introduce a biological agent, and then we are dead, something like a disease, an Ebola type thing, or some kind of disease that would kill us. And then it'd be a lot easier to do. It just doesn't make any sense, And we, of course, like I said, we have no evidence that, that certainly we're not seeing them attack cities. So they're here, but I really do think they're more likely here to help us and also study other life forms on the planet Earth, because there's so much going on underneath the oceans and above the oceans, and there's just a lot happening. It's a nice world. It's a violent world. Naturally, unfortunately, we're carnivorous a lot. It's fish eat fish and animals eat animals, and probably is a very scary thing to many different types of aliens, and maybe to other ones are quite familiar with the concept, and came from that. So it's very interesting, but it certainly is a planet worth investigating and a planet worth saving. And I'm very big on that, on prolonging our lifespan of the human race.
Yeah, and we've seen evidence as far as different carvings on different pyramids, temples, so on and so forth, even in artwork back, in Jesus' time, where you see the Mother Mary holding Jesus, and in the sky in the background there's like a UFO war going on. I do believe that some of them are here to help us, and there's others that have wanted to come here for our demise. But I think, like you said, there are those of the aliens that are here to protect us and keep us alive and protect us from those darker entities of aliens that would like to see us not succeed.
Well, if they didn't want us to succeed, they would simply destroy us. I mean, there's an easier way to do that. I mean, like I said, we have the technology to create biological weapons already to destroy the human race. You can imagine they would too. I mean, these are advanced civilizations. I think personally we're being protected by positive aliens from these renegade negative aliens that might want to take over and do things. And so I do think they've been here for since the beginning. Certainly these, they didn't become advanced right away. It would take, many thousands of years. And for all I know, that they dropped us off here, or we came here on spaceships. I think it's very possible. I've never been convinced, and I've studied these things, that, like say the pyramids, It makes no sense. The idea that that some scientists try to explain away how these things were done by what I consider to be ridiculous and unnecessary methods. How to transport these huge rocks and make them into perfect shapes and all of that. It's like, why? They never think. It's the question. The real question is why. Why would they? It's not just because of ego. I want to be buried in a pyramid or something. That. No, I think that there probably got some help from alien races, and there certainly are a lot of carvings. Tess, you're right. That in ancient times, and of course we didn't understand what they were, and so we kind of drew these designs of all these different kinds of creatures and alien spaceships, and I think there's a lot of validity to that. Really, I do.
So we have a question here from Rick in the chat room, and he's wondering who or what mutilated livestock, etc. Part ET, part government, black ops, false flag. What are your thoughts on that, Jeffrey?
I'm not sure. Is this from Kirkby?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Rick. What do you mean as far as the livestock? Oh, you're talking about mutilation?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, there are negative people out there. We know that. There are people out there who do very bad things to other people. So it stands to reason that there are negative aliens out there as well. And that is a very negative thing as far as I'm concerned, that if there's a part of this being done by aliens that are essentially hurting people and livestock, that is, I would consider them to be negative. And I think there are negative, and we can't catch all of them. It's kind of like spirits, that how do they get through if there are higher spirits protecting us? Well, there's a lot of spirits out there, and they can't catch every one of them, and neither can we. And also, there are a lot of aliens out there. Like I said, I really believe that there are maybe 50 different races at any one time on the planet Earth. And so not just 2 or 3 or 4, but the idea that they're coming in and out and for their own reasons. And not all of these are positive. And if they take a look at us, look what we do to livestock. I mean, if you take a look, at from a distance, if you're an alien on a spacecraft and you monitor our media and look at what we do to animals on this planet, to chickens and cows and anything that we can eat, it's pretty horrific. And so I'm not trying to moralize here and say, well, we deserve it or something, but it may be that, they don't have a lot of respect for us, and so they feel that they're doing experiments and trying to figure out what life forms are made of, and to understand a little bit about their cruelty, take a look at our own cruelty. We think it's okay. We think that chickens and cows and lobsters that we boil alive just because they taste better do not have souls. Let me tell you from a guy who sees souls, they have souls. Insects have souls. Cats have souls. Dogs have souls. Any sentient life forms have souls. Even flowers, even trees. They're just very different. And they look very different to me. But we are really like torturing these animals and creatures, and we, it's kind of like we think it's all natural, to do these things, raise and baby chickens in little tiny cages and then kill them, and they don't have souls. They do. And so I think there are probably aliens out there that maybe don't have the same disrespect and feel, well, if they kill them, so can we. I'm not sure, but there's certainly, if they are being done by aliens, and I think that some of that could be true. Rick, that these would be negative aliens that would do that. And they'd be around. They'd be around.
As Skywatcher was saying, they broke the story about mutilations in 1979, and it wasn't just cattle and other wildlife. It was humans as well, who were being dissected and found with different parts of their bodies and anatomy missing. So it was a pretty scary time, and I'm not sure if that's still going on. I know just recently there was another article about mutilations on cattle, and they're trying to figure out, why is this happening, how is it happening, and they're way out in the boonies and they have their farms out there. Who else would be out there to do it? And I don't know, I think they're looking for answers like we are. There may be something going on with their genetics where they're trying to figure out how to heal themselves from perhaps being in space for so long, because it is detrimental not only to us, but perhaps to them. Perhaps they're just looking for answers of how to fix themselves due to the radiation and whatever else they're exposed to in the universe.
It's possible. I really, I look at the whole thing, and I do think that it could be some aliens that are doing some of these things. There are evidence, too perfect of surgeries and removals of things, and also with humans that have been abducted and have run into horrible experiences. And I just think there are negative aliens out there as well, and they don't have a lot of disrespect for life. And when they come and they see what we do, we don't need to use animal protein to survive. We can find alternative methods of, people say, well, because animals kill each other, it's okay if we do it. But the real sign of an intelligent and advanced civilization is that we don't have to do it. We can get protein from other sources. We don't have to kill animals. And of course, if they come near and monitor our satellites, which is the first thing I think they would do, they see that we're very destructive and cruel, not only towards animals, but towards each other. And so maybe they, I'm not making excuses for them, but the idea that it's kind of like well, they do it anyway, so why not come down and do it for our own purposes? And I don't know why they're doing that. I just think that that's a very small percentage of the aliens, that it's not happening everywhere. It's just happening somewhere. And it's happened to some people. And I think that it's some of these people have very valid experiences that are negative, where they have been prodded and changed and worked on in very negative ways as an experiment. And by aliens that see us as so low on the scale of a life form compared to them, that is kind of how we look at chickens and goats and cows, is that kill them. They don't have souls. Dogs, cats, and it's okay to kill them. And it's they may look at us the same way, and morally, they're not that advanced. They may be advanced on a technological level, but not on a moral level. I just think it's only a percentage, because of course it's not happening everywhere. It's just we have case histories, and I do believe that some of these people have been abducted and some negative things have been done. But think of all the positive things that may have been done as well. That I explain about my own contact with aliens, and aliens have never done anything negative to me, but teach me how to do my job better. And half of the things I know how to do were taught to me by aliens. And so they're not all negative. And I've actually never met a negative alien, except for in my work when I've helped clients. I have run into negative aliens that were attacking human beings and trying to gain information about us through telepathy, which can be forced out of a person, and that's a very negative experience. And so I have to help them with those problems as well. So I think, Rick makes a good point, that these things are happening, and but if we want to put, and I'll use the English slang, UK slang, if we want to put bangers on our plate, we have to kill, which are essentially sausages for us Americans, but that we're killing animals to do it, and I'm sure they don't like it. If they had their choice, they'd be running free along the fields, and so a lot of us are carnivorous. I don't point the finger at people. That is our history. We probably would be dead if we didn't. But the sign of an advanced race is when you move past that and say, you know what, I can kill that animal for food, but I don't have to. I'll find another source of protein, and there are plenty of sources of protein out there. But I don't point the finger at people who are carnivorous. It's just, there's no point in it. It's how I feel personally about it. But me explaining it to people, my own feelings about it is not going to change anything. And so I tend to work on the things that I can change. And right now, as I said earlier in the show, we can't even get along with each other because of our skin color differences, country of origin, religious differences, and all of that. And so how can we get along with animals or aliens? We don't understand what they are. We feel they don't have souls. Many religions teach that we're the top of the heap. We're on the top level, and we're just not. It's not true, and so, but that's how we're taught. We're the center of the universe, and the stars are just out there for our amusement. When actually they're suns with planets around them. Not every one of them, but most of them. And so it's just, kind of logical.
It really is. And like you said, there's so many different supposed races, so on and so forth. Can you tell us the difference between your positive interaction and then your negative interaction with aliens as well?
Yes, I've never had a negative experience with aliens. I do know how to protect myself, and I teach people how to protect themselves against any kind of negative people, spirits, or aliens. It's all the same thing, the same methods. But the idea, it's actually very easy to learn. But the idea is that I have only dealt with positive aliens in my work, except for when I'm working for other people. And they have reported coming into contact with negative aliens, which I think were very valid, not because they said so, but because of their experience. And some of these people were working in places where they would come into contact with that kind of thing, with aliens. And so and then I had to fix the problem, meaning that I would actually go up, essentially astral traveling, which means I send a portion of my consciousness. Remember, I like to explain things, how they work. Astral traveling, what is that? Essentially, that means you're sending a portion of your consciousness out of your physical body or out of your spirit, or having part of your spirit travel and perceiving and communicating and doing other things on a different level. And I've had to go on different alien spacecraft and say, look, please stop harassing this person. You're hurting them. And I've gotten mixed results. Now, have I been successful? Yes. But I can't threaten them because they have bigger guns than I have. Meaning that I don't have any physical ray gun or something, I mean, that they could attack me as well, and so, and they do. But the idea is that the attacks usually are on an emotional level or psychological level. When it comes to negative aliens, it's more of, look, I use logic with them, that I'll go up to their spaceship, and they're not happy about that. It's a portion of me, yet they can see me. It's kind of like my spirit being up there. But we're communicating telepathically. And I'll simply say, look, you're hurting this person. What they're trying to do is gather information. And it's like, look, you already got the information. Why don't you just kind of move on, please? Because, this person is in great distress. And I've been successful at doing that through logic and reasoning. And the ones that won't listen to me, then, as far as they won't listen to me anyway, that they're not going to talk to me anyway. And there are methods of keeping me away from their spacecraft or their planet. And all, on the other side, there's no such thing as distance. That's a physical property, a physical measurement. There's only focus. And so the idea of me going, to a different planet or a different, to a spaceship that's traveling away from the Earth is not as difficult as it sounds if you know how to do it. And so it's science. It's not, I don't even consider it to be metaphysical or spiritual. One of the things that I've learned, Tess, over the last 28 years of doing this kind of work and really, having these different spirits and aliens come into my life and really change me, and some of it was actually felt very negative at first, but actually changed me for the better. So I become more perceptive. Is that it's all science. That there are laws in what people call heaven. There are laws on the other side. Spirits cannot do anything that they want. It's very important to understand that, or there would be cars flying around, tipping over, buildings being tipped over, and all these things that happen in Hollywood movies. And things do happen when there's a lot of emotional energy or a very powerful bad spirit. They can affect the physical world to some degree. Usually it's not anything really huge. It's small things. Like when I was on A&E, I was on a show called 13 Most Shocking Hollywood Curses, and I was on there with Linda Blair from The Exorcist,
Oh, wow.
Ellen Burstyn. Oh, yeah. And my job was to look at it from an exorcist perspective. So I did that show, and most of the things that happened in that movie, and of course it came from a book and it was based on an actual case, but 99% of the things that happened in the book and the movie never really happened in the original case. It was essential. And also, I got to point this out because I think it's very important. Whenever I do a television or radio show, not yours, you actually had different kind of music, but they play the theme from The Exorcist, which is a great movie. I went to see it when it came out. Even though I was a kid, a friend's mother snuck us in as her children, so we got to go in. It was R-rated and all the rest of it. They were handing out barf bags back then. It was really quite something.
Oh, man.
But it was. But here's the thing: in the movie, they point to the exorcism. The Catholic rite of exorcism is actually very powerful and it works. And also different religions, Wiccan religion, and the Muslim, Islamic religions, all have different, Native American, all have different exorcism techniques, and they can be very powerful and they do work. But if you take a look at the movie The Exorcist, for example, it was an unsuccessful exorcism. Most people don't think about that. Look what happened. The Father Marin, who was in the actual priest, this was a revenge. This was in the book and the movie over a previous exorcism done, I think, in the Middle East or Africa, as I remember. And essentially, so it goes into the little girl. The demon Pazuzu goes into the little girl, but only to get at the exorcist. Now, what happens is that they do the proper thing, the Catholic rite of exorcism. But unfortunately, the heart was weak and something happened out of the scene, and Father Marin was actually killed. Now you have one dead exorcist. Now, the second priest, who has never done an exorcism before and had no business being in there. I do not let people do exorcisms with me. It's dangerous unless you're trained, and I'm trained. But the idea is that he also failed. He said, take me, come into me. You never say that during an exorcism.
No.
So what happens is the spirit goes into the second priest, and he jumps out the window. Now you have two dead exorcists.
Man.
And the spirit goes on. You can't kill spirits, they're already dead. The demon goes on. The demon simply, it was never about the girl. The girl was a catalyst. So Linda Blair in the movie was a catalyst. And so the demon gets away scot-free, and you have two dead exorcists. One being a real experienced one being one who had problems with his own belief system, who had no business being in there in the first place. It was a failed exorcism in the movie. The demon got away and killed two exorcists. One good and one who should never have been there. Good movie, but the idea is that it didn't work. The idea is to actually get rid of
not such a good story.
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea is to, get rid, to kick the demonic spirit out, kick it back to the lower realms, meaning hell, what people call hell, and both exorcist or the exorcist survives. And also the girl. That's a successful exorcism. And that's what happened in the original story. The original, it was based on a real exorcism of a 13-year-old boy. That did happen. And they wrote a manuscript about it, one of the priests, later on. And so it was a success. It took a few exorcisms, and there was some supernatural things that did happen, although nothing like in the movie. But the idea is that no priests were killed. One of them was very well harmed. The boy actually took out, they were done in Catholic hospitals, two different ones, and he actually ripped out, he was tied up. He actually got loose and ripped out a bed spring from below the bed and tore it down one of the priest's arms. And one of the priests had to bow out because he was so badly injured that he could not continue with the exorcism, and they had to continue with the other exorcists. That actually happened. But the exorcism was successful, and that person went on to live a normal life. They'd never released the name of that person and never will, and for the obvious reasons. But that was a successful exorcism. But in the movie The Exorcist, that was not a successful exorcism.
Kind of going off that case and so on and so forth. We had another question from Skywatcher in the chat room. And he was wondering, what do you think, Jeffrey, of women being abducted and used as breeders for hybrids?
It's possible, Skywalker. It's possible. That I'm not sure that we're not alien. We're very much, as I pointed out in the beginning of our show tonight, that we're very different than other creatures on this planet. I'm not saying we're the most advanced or whatever. I'm not making that point. But we're the only creatures that really build airplanes and skyscrapers and cars and actually build spaceships and go into outer space and say, here we are, we're looking for you, please come and talk to us. Why are we doing this? And why are not other life forms doing this that we know about? Maybe whales are communicating with other, life forms and other planets, but I'm saying physically, on a physical level, why are we doing this? Why are we going back? Why do we have the interest in all of this? And, if you look at, say, like religion with ridiculous concepts of, two people, God created two people, and so that would make us all incredibly in bed.
Right.
And that would explain certain people. That's kind of a joke that I tell people. I said that would explain certain people on our planet, especially some of our leaders. But the idea is that it also doesn't make any sense. It's just simply a story. And I'm not saying there's not a God or gods. I certainly believe in higher spirits. I've come into contact with so many of them. I can tell you that they exist. So I'm not saying, I think that creation and evolution actually work hand in hand together. So you got these two factions arguing everything was created at once, and the other, which are the religious people, essentially, not all religious people, but I mean some of the more, hardcore. And then you have the scientists that say, no, everything's an accident. It started with a big bang, and then everything is just kind of that way. I think both happened. I think that actually it starts with creation and then kind of goes into evolution.
Well, yeah, and who's to say that the Big Bang wasn't something more than what it was? I mean, there's so many different ways that things can happen.
Well, even if there was a big bang, that the idea is that who made that happen?
Right.
Just happened by itself? No, I really don't think so. And the idea also being that, what is the human soul, the animal soul, the alien soul, all of this, that so many people on our planet, whether they're religious people or not, or just spiritual or just curious or whatever, really believe in life after death. And I don't think it's just a hope. They have a feeling about it, that, very, very many religious people will tell you, that it's a feeling that they get. I think there's some validity to that, that, and of course, if you study near-death experiences, that, like I said, they're all the same. People all say the same thing. They might say, okay, I see a tunnel, I see a light, I see spirit guides coming at me, they're full of love, all the rest of it. But what's the commonality about it, Tess, is that they are now mostly detached, not completely, or they'd be dead, but mostly attached from their physical body, and they feel fine. Because when these people come back, and they have no reason to go on these different shows, and have nothing to gain and everything to lose by being ridiculed, they're not making any money, most of them, and they say, you know what, I feel I am no longer afraid of death. I almost died on the operating table. They think they died, but they really didn't. If they were dead, they would go on. But they were close to death, close enough where their spirit was actually heading out of their body. And so, but it's the same thing. They feel fine. They feel great. They feel a knowingness of their whole life. They remember their whole life. They remember, our perceptions change. Once our perceptions are not focused on the physical test, then it can actually spread out to look at everything else. And so if you look at near-death experiences, which are really a great way to study things, that they really have a lot of common properties to what people are saying. And one really wonderful thing out of that is they come back without any fear of death. Because on the other side, there is no pain. That's a physical thing. Pain is a physical thing. There's emotional pain that we take with us. Now, there are religions out there that say, no, when we die, everything's forgiven, everything's forgotten. I say the exact opposite. Everything is remembered. I offer no hope to people who think that they can do anything they want and that just because they believe in some deity from some book, that when they leave the planet, that they're not going to take their problems with them and everything they did. That's just not true. That's what they want to believe. And that what gives them the permission to do whatever they want. It doesn't matter what I do. I go to church on Sunday, all is forgiven. Now I can start to do some sinning again now that it's Monday. Yeah. And so it's really is not true, and so like I said, the reason being is that the only thing that happens when you die, every one of us, is our physical body separates from our spirit. Our spirit is inside of us. Our spirit is us. It's not something inside of us. I mean, as far as it's not something separate, it is us. Our soul and our spirit is us. It's everything but our physical body. And so when we leave, if we have problems, which we all do, every one of us, we take that with us to the other side. And we do have to work on those things and look at our lives and say, okay, I didn't do everything right. And some of us did more bad things than others. And we have to atone for that. And that is what the idea of reincarnation is all about. And I remember some of my past lives, not all of the whole life, but I remember doing this kind of work in other lifetimes in a very different way. But some of the things that I do and some of the ways that I work and help people, not just through exorcisms, but I'd say 60% of my work is doing clearings on people, just helping to release negative energy. That's about 60% of my work.
Well,
When
it's
I
so
first started
important,
up-
too, because like you said, you don't want to take that to the other side. You need to work through this stuff and get rid of it. And so
Negative
you're
energy.
free.
Negative energy is a real energy. It's not physical. So even if we've worked through these things psychologically and emotionally, the corresponding energy can still remain in our systems, and that's the energy that I work on. So even if you are not bothered by things that happen when you were a child on a psychological and emotional level, the corresponding energies can still be inside of your body's energy fields, which are part of your spirit. That's what I work on to help people release, and that's a good portion of my work. Now, that happened because the first 7 years of my work, starting in 1992, I only did exorcisms. I only worked on the hardest of the hardest cases. As what I learned by doing that was that some people were wrong, that there was not a spirit in their house. What there was a lot of accumulated emotional energy. And it made the atmosphere horrible. And it made people act really badly and feel uncomfortable. And so it's like, wow, there's something really bad in my home. And so sometimes I would go in there and there would be spirits. And if there were not, they would leave because an exorcist is coming. I would track them down. They leave trails on an emotional level. And you can see these things, at least I can, and other people as well. I'm not the only psychic person around. But I also learned that negative spirits are attracted to negative energy, and they feel more powerful around negative emotional energy, which is kind of like emotional sweat. We all give off positive and emotional energies. We just don't see them, but we feel them. Everybody's got a story about walking into a restaurant or somebody's apartment or their home or around a person, and they feel negative. They might walk into an empty apartment, and it feels negative. I work with a lot of, people who own properties, apartment buildings and businesses and all of that, and they can't rent the apartment because when people walk in there, they feel negative. It's not always because there's a spirit in there. It's also because the former tenants, and there might have been 50 different people living in there because it might be old buildings, especially like, say, where Rick lives, in the marvelous history of the UK. Some of these buildings are like 400 or 500 years old, and there have been maybe 100, 200 people living in the same apartment, same area. And that's an awful lot of people, and they're all giving off emotional energy, and that accumulates and builds up and eventually goes tilt, and that creates a problem for people who are moving in to it. And so in America, which is a younger country, and you might, where things are like, say, 200 or 300 years old or less, that you might have, say, in some of the building that might have been built in 1910 or 1930 or 40 or 50, 20 or 30 or 40 different families or couples or single people that have lived in these units, each one of them giving off emotional sweat. This is all science, not spirituality or religion, and that accumulates in the environment, and we are essentially living in other people's emotional sweat. And that's what people are feeling, and that causes a problem, and that's a great portion of what I clear. And I recommend that when people move into a new place or they feel uncomfortable in their place, they have it cleared. And I do a lot of distance work. I don't just travel around the world doing clearings. What happened was in 2007, I started to become popular. And all of a sudden, I started getting calls from Beijing, China, and the Middle East, South America, Canada, and all different UK, mainland Europe, in different places, and I couldn't just travel around doing these clearings. And so, with the help of my spirit guides and with the help of aliens, I learned, and they taught me different techniques that how to focus in by using a picture or Skype. I work on Skype a lot. And focus in on either a person's energy fields or the energy fields of the property, because each property is unique. You can have 10 houses in a row that look the same, but because of their history, they're completely unique. It's kind of like our DNA. They're completely unique. And it's something I had to learn. You know, when I first started out doing this, because I had to, I was doing these shows, and all of a sudden I'd get 400 emails. And it was like, how do I help these people? Well, my spirit guides helped me learn how to do that. And when I first started out, I was only batting about 65%, you know, meaning that I had to learn how to do it, you know, and practice and practice and practice. And now I'm batting like 99.9%, which is very different, you know, that it's just, you know, a lot of practice. And so people say, how can you clear a house that's 6,000 miles away? There's no such thing as distance on the other side. Like say, you know, when people call heaven the non-physical universe, there is no such thing as distance. That's a physical measurement. When it comes to clearing out emotional energy, there are certain techniques that I use and certain energies that I bring up from the other side that have a known effect upon negative energy and is able to actually push it out of people's homes and also their bodies' energy fields. Maybe not all of it, but a good portion of it, and make it a lot better. When working on spirits, you know, essentially to kick them out of people's homes, and then if they need to be brought down to a lower plane, which is essentially what people refer to as hell, I, you know, usually use my spirit guides. They make that decision because I don't know their whole history. If they're doing it for a longer period of time, they're not going to stop, and they need to be quarantined because they will continue to attack. But the main thing is to get them out of your house and your apartment. But what really is going on, the major problem right now is people generating negative energy towards other people. It's not so much just spirits generating negative energy. They're just taking advantage of that test. What's really going on in our world in 2019 is we're our own worst enemy. We're generating negative energies towards each other. We're making the negative spirits' job so much more easy because we think badly of each other. I don't like your politics. I don't like your religion. I don't like your skin color, your country, whatever. All these ridiculous things. And so we're throwing negative energy at each other. And so we're just making it easy on negative spirits to launch attacks upon people. We're doing their job for them. And so one of the things that I do is I teach people how to release negative emotional energies. And I wrote an audiobook about that. And the reason I created, the reason I did an audiobook is that I do better at teaching, through, verbally than I do writing. Because people would go back to page 7 and say, what did Jeffrey say? Page 8, instead of page 283. I've had many publishing companies approach me and say, we want to write a book about you. And I would tell them, no, I don't want the book to be about me. Now, the first chapter of my book, I'd be happy to send anybody who emails me a copy. It's an audio book. I have it's for sale on Amazon and iTunes and all that and whatever. But I mean, I didn't write the book to make money. I wrote the book to help people. And so chapter 1 is my metaphysical history. Chapter 2 is about how to protect yourself from all things negative. And it works. Chapter 3 is about how to protect your home. And chapter 4 is about how to protect your business. Chapter 5 was an add-on they added right then and there. I did this in Chicago. I recorded it in Chicago. Is about your spirit guides And it was never about making money. I was approached by very famous publishing companies saying, look, your life is so weird. So many crazy things have happened to you personally. You want to make this book about you? I said, no way, because this is not going to happen to everybody. They'll get nothing out of it. It doesn't matter if I make money or not. I didn't get into this business to make money. That's why I charge so little. I did not get into this work to make money. I told, when I've done 5 appearances, I have done 5 appearances on Coast to Coast. And one time George Norrie asked me about it, and I said, ego is the killer of the exorcist. And what I mean by that is that when my spirit guides approached me about 7 years after I got into my work, and they said, would you like to join a larger organization that helps people all over the universe? Think about it for 3 days and give us your answer. And I did think about it too. We can't offer you anything. You must do it out of the goodness of your own heart. You can charge people. You have to live. A Catholic Church doesn't pay me. I have to, pay my rent, but
right.
I charge as little as I can. And the reason I do is that I want to be able to help everybody and not just, I don't ask people how much money they make. I have wealthy clients. I have poor clients. I have clients that have nothing. I have celebrity clients. I have clients that are nobody knows. I work with everybody. I don't ask them questions. I just help them. And so,
well, Jeffrey, I do hate to interrupt, but we do have to go to our second musical break.
Okay.
So for our listeners out there, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
When I met you, my life changed. Your love rained all over me. It was blissful, so special, essential. Life poetry, true beauty. We created, we made it. Reality, pure affection with expression. A connection was meant to be. You make me feel so good inside, like therapy for my mind. You make me feel so good inside. It was like flowers and candy, understanding how you're standing really must be love. I'm talking true, I'm talking real, and I felt it in my heart. It was like flowers and candy, understanding how you're standing really must be love. I'm talking true, I'm talking real, and I felt it in my heart and soul. You make me feel so good inside. You make me feel so good inside.
Now what is this that's happening? I don't even know you anymore. Oh, yeah. Changes moving through every day. Yeah. And I don't even know what we're fighting for.
Our bright days turn to sleepless nights. Our loving ways have turned to endless fights, and we can't seem to compromise. We try so hard to make things right. Yesterday, will changes are moving through everything. Changes. I will accept you for who you are, all your flaws and your scars. Because I love you too much to let you go. You help me grow. I will accept you for who you are, all your flaws. Because I love you too much to let you go. You help me grow. I will accept you for who you are, all your flaws and your scars. Because I love you too much to let you go. Your love flows through me like water from the rain.
It flows right through me.
You've cleansed my soul and washed away all the pain.
You wash every part.
Your love lifts higher than all of the stars in the sky.
So high.
I may not wish on you to be by my side. You loving me, I feel like flying. You loving me, I feel like crying. Tears of joy fall from the sky to make
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. Tonight we are joined by psychic exorcist Jeffrey Seelman. Jeffrey, welcome back, and thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Oh,
it's been
great
awesome.
to be here. Oh, it's just a great show. Really, I'm just so happy to have to be here, and I think it's a highly intelligent show and great questions from your listening audience also, and I'm just ready to take more, and explain just anything that you would like me to explain. I really believe that if these phenomenon, the things that are a mystery to us, are explained properly, which is what I like to do as a teacher, because I do consider myself first and foremost to be a teacher, and that's why I do things verbally, and that's why I did my book verbally. And like I said before, I'd be happy to send, through the email and through a link, a copy of my audiobook that I wrote in 2013. Because I didn't make it, it's also on my website, starclear.com. I think I have a little link up there. You can get it. And on my Facebook page, it's on there. I have several Facebook pages, all accessible through my website, starclear.com. But I did not create it to make money. I created it to, even though it's for sale on certain venues, but I created it to help people. And an exorcist, a true exorcist, has to do this to help other people. One of the things that my spirit guides told me before I made the decision to actually join this larger group that I belong to of spirits is that we cannot offer you a desk job in heaven. Now, that's not the exact thing they said to me, but that was, the idea behind it. It was that you'll get no rewards from it. You have to do this out of the goodness of your own heart. Later on, I said yes anyway. I said, look, I have these talents. I was born with psychic abilities. I got more talents after that, to help people. That's part of the story. But later on, they explained to me something different. They said, what could we offer a spirit anyway? Spirits can create their own reality. They can create their own homes, even though they don't need shelter. We like our privacy. They can create things that look like food. They can create things that look like clothing. We can look sharp. We can do all these different wonderful things. So what could you really offer a spirit? And so that's really what they were getting at, and something I didn't understand, back in, say, 1997, 1998, you got to do this out of the goodness of your own heart. We're not going to give you a parade when you get up, onto the other side, into heaven, whatever. Don't expect that. And I then later on, they would explain to me, years later, that it's like, hey, that you didn't really understand it, but the fact is, just being a spirit is the best reward, and being eternal. And there's no force in this entire universe that can destroy your personality. Look at your soul like this. Your soul is your personality. That's the best way to, and the easiest way to describe it. How fortunate we are, whether we are an animal or an insect or an alien or a person from the earth. How fortunate to be able to live forever. And I also believe in reincarnation, that we come back down. Not right away. That we'd learn nothing if we went from lifetime to lifetime. I think we spend time, there's no such thing as time really, but we spend, we look at ourselves and what we've done in our life and the things we did right, things we'd like to do better, and then make some decisions about what we want to do in the next life. Some people have to be forced into it because they're problematic. And I don't really think many spirits like to come down into the physical realm because it's very limited. There's physical pain. I don't tolerate physical pain very well. And so we are very limited. We have to walk to get places. We can't just invent. We have to, if we're poor, we can't get what we want. There's so many poor people in our world. It's a shame. And there's so much hatred and prejudice. And of course, right now we're very busy destroying our ecosphere of our planet. And, of course, we have people who either don't believe it or, even worse, don't care because they believe that Armageddon is coming. I'm not pointing my finger at any one religion. This is very common in major religions, that the world's going to come to an end, we're all going to die, and that's a good thing. No, it's not. Maybe for you, I don't care. If you want to die, go ahead. But not me, and not my grandchildren, and not my children. So this particular Swedish activist who's coming around, she's got a little metaphysical bent to her, that, the idea, she's very smart, intelligent young woman, they had a lot to say about, okay, maybe you want to die. Maybe it's part of your religion that Armageddon's coming and, God and Jesus and whatever, Muhammad are going to send you down to hell, who unbelievers and all this nonsense. But we don't want to die. And our children don't want to die. And the people who have not been born yet, they don't want to die. You don't have the right to destroy this world. She's going around saying now she's in Canada. And so this is, I think, what we need more of, is young people rising up and speaking out and saying, no, I've had enough of this BS. This is crap. This is a horrible philosophy. Because I use this analogy, and I've done this many times on radio and television. If a dog, and I'll do it nicely on your show, if a dog does its business in your living room, and you go into your bedroom and pray all night long for it to disappear, pray to God all night long. And I'm not saying God doesn't exist. I'm just saying if you pray to God and say, please make that disappear, guess what you're going to find in your living room the next morning?
A pile of duties.
Yep, you got it. And so the idea is that we have to do something. God's not going to fix the ecosphere. This is our job. We're capable of doing it. It's unfortunately the leaders of the world and the people who actually own the world, the 1%, seem not to care. Well, you know what? They better start because they're breathing the same air as we do, and they don't have any spaceships to go anywhere else. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they just simply think, well, we're supposed to die, maybe. But there's something, really a terrible philosophy, and it's called self-fulfilling prophecy. And that means, of course, that the idea that we're supposed to die, the world's supposed to come to an end, and we can't wait for that to happen. And what I say to that is, good riddance to you. That to you, not to me. You can't destroy my world. You don't have the right to destroy this planet and the things on this planet. If you want to die, there's the nearest cliff. But you do not have the right to poison this planet. The energy conglomerates and the people who make what we call, I guess, food. It really isn't food anymore. It's just a bunch of chemicals.
Yeah.
And it's very sad, very sad.
A lot of our food that we consume is outlawed in so many different countries.
It is. When I go to I've been to the European Union many times, and I can tell you that it's amazing, that I eat their food and I start to feel good. And I'll give you an example, and I don't mind because it's a real thing. It's not cutting down anything, but I ordered some Fanta orange soda, and it's made by Fanta, and I was in the European Union. And instead of this orange stuff that tastes like, I don't know what, that we get over here in the United States, they don't have any food coloring in it, and so it's a different color, and it's actually fruit juice carbonated with orange bits in it.
Oh, wow.
And yet it says Fanta orange soda on it. We're getting ripped off. I mean, essentially the people who, are running like the food industry, the FDA in the United States, do not care about us one little bit. They have no problem making us sick because then they can sell us the pills to try to keep us living a little bit longer. It's a big racket, and it's a dangerous one, and it's hurting people. I mean, it's just destroying us, and we're a little off topic, but I mean that it does play into the idea that I want the Earth to be around for thousands and thousands of years, and we build spaceships and go and visit other planets and meet other life forms on other planets, enjoying the body of different alien races, and essentially become part of the whole thing. And I believe in our future, and we need to work on it. And it's nice to see young people rise up, because that's exactly what I did in the 1960s and 70s when the Vietnam War was going on, which was a big sham. We rose up. If you study history, we actually shook down the gates of the White House and tipped over the buses. When Nixon was president, we actually attacked the White House. And not saying people should do that. I'm not advocating that. What I'm saying is that it's time to make a stand and say, you know what, you're not going to destroy this planet, because it is metaphysical. It does go into the work that I do. I want us to be around for thousands of years. We can stop this from happening, but we have to get going on it right away.
Well, I just wanted to let our listeners know, because not everyone is in the chat room, and different people may be listening on different genres, but you can call in with any questions or comments at 1-970-335-9596. That's 1-970-335-9596. And then I also had a question for you from the chat room as well, Jeffrey.
Okay.
Skywatcher was wondering, what do you think of the guided meditations on YouTube for getting rid of negative energies, or guided meditation in general?
If they work, I say go for it. You'll know it because you'll feel better. So I think a lot of this stuff is very good, and a lot of it maybe is not. So I would just kind of be careful and discerning. If you feel better after doing some of these guided meditations, there are a lot of people out there that are really trying to help. We need help. So for people out there that are thinking about helping other people, young psychics, middle-aged psychics that are just getting into the work, and people who want to try to get rid of some of the negativity in our world today, I say that we need you. And so there are a lot of people on YouTube. There was when people started producing their own news programs on YouTube, a lot of the major networks and the journalists, respected journalists, people who I even respect, were very much against it. They said they're not professional journalists and they don't have access to the information that we do. And the first thing I thought was, excellent. I'm glad they don't, because you only are able to say what your bosses tell you to say. The minute you step out of line, they'll fire you. And that's true of every major network.
Right.
Where on YouTube, you can say anything that you want. Everybody has an opinion. And being sort of an old hippie type guy from the 1960s, I grew up in that, in the psychedelic era, the 60s and 70s. The idea was freedom. The idea is that everybody has a right to their opinion. And if they want to make a YouTube program in order to help people, I say go for it. Because you'll know if it works or not, Skywalker, because if you don't feel better after practicing it for a while, then maybe it's not right for you and you can choose something else. But there's an awful lot of good things on YouTube, and I like a lot of the different alternative news sources, and also meditations and information about aliens and information about spirits out there. A lot of this stuff is right. It doesn't mean that everything they say is correct, or that I say is the absolute. This is my opinion. Everything I say is my perspective. But I think it's, I completely disagreed with their philosophy of, you didn't go to journalism school. You don't work for CNN or Fox or something like that. And so you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, no, that's why you should be doing that. Because you're not free. These mega companies, these news outlets are owned usually by one person. And if any of these journalists or talking heads step out of line, whatever station they're on, whatever news organization, one thing, they're gone. Or they're chastised, or they're not allowed to say it. And so we're not getting the truth from CNN and BBC and Al Jazeera and Fox and all these different news stations. We're not getting the whole truth. They are telling us what they want us to hear. And so I say kudos to people who are creating their own radio shows like you are doing, and also people on YouTube and all the different media outlets and the ways of communicating with people. Do it. Because we need your opinion. We need everybody's opinion. Don't listen to these people that tell you that your opinion doesn't count. It does.
It really does, and it takes, everybody knows a little bit of something, and the more we share with each other, the more we'll know together, you know what I mean?
It's true. Things are changing. Things are changing out there. I was reading an article in the news a couple of days ago how young people are moving away from religion, and even middle-aged people, that are moving away because it's become so political. And I think that's a good thing. I'm not a big fan of religion, I'll be honest with you, because they tend to go by ancient books that were poorly written and were wild guesses as opposed to the reality and the science behind it. They simply didn't know how things work, so they made up stuff. And we're still going by that. And it's more of like, do you believe it or not? Either it's all true or none of it's true. Why would that be? It doesn't make any sense. So when it comes to things like one of the greatest hoaxes I think ever put on the human race is the idea that when you die, that everything that you've done is forgotten. That's just nonsense. It's no purpose to it. That's what some people would like to believe who do bad things. But the reality is that, like I said, your body drops and that's it, and you take your personality with you, and also your emotional state, all of the energy that is non-physical, your psychological state. All of this transfers to the other side with you, comes with you with your spirit. So we have a situation, where you're now passed on. You're not physical anymore, but you have things to look at. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Your perceptions change. They become greater. Now you're able to see your entire life. Many people who have had near-death experiences talk about that. They see their entire life. Every little thing they forgot. I think that's very valid. I think the same thing happens to people that truly die, and don't come back, that I remember these things myself, that this happened to me. And there's a purpose to it, to grow and learn and change. And then we come back down, maybe in a different kind of body, maybe a man one lifetime, maybe a woman another. And I think some spirits feel more comfortable being a female or a male, and that has consequences to it that are positive. Essentially that people, say a mother or a father, or know what it's like to be poor if they were super rich and they don't know what it's like to be poor. They need to know what it's like to have nothing, because that's how the world changes. Because then they take that knowledge with them to the other side, and also while they're living, and say, okay, it's not okay to be dirt poor. It's not okay to starve to death. We need to spread the wealth out a little bit here, and each one of us is no more valuable than anyone else. And we have a pyramid economic system in our world where we have 1% of the population that owns 89% of the wealth. That's crazy.
It is.
So,
we do have a caller. From area code 905. Who are we talking to?
Hello, my name is Dennis. They call me Dream Master in circles.
Hey, Dennis.
Hi. Hi, Tessa. Hi, Jeff. Hi. Yes, I have a few questions for you, sir, Jeff. I was listening to you earlier in regards to protection, like in regards to negative energies, right?
Yes.
What is it exactly that people should be doing? Because I hear, and I see in the chat room here, pagans, right? I hear a lot about work with staging and crystals. Like I know you were discussing negative energy. What is it exactly, the protection? Like, if you want to like protect your home or your physical space. Right? Like do you, like how do you hold positive energy where that the negatives, like the negative energies, I call them?
Well, it's a good question, Dennis.
Yeah.
You know, essentially, what you want to do is I teach people to think like a spirit. And that means bringing up energy from the other side, meaning heaven, through our spirit, which is already on the other side, and then creating different kinds of protective shields,
right,
and even offensive devices like swords that can be used against negative spirits, and different kinds of shields that can actually protect us from negative emotional energy. Where does that energy come from? It comes from the other side.
Right. No, I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm really trying to keep up with you. Where do I get these swords and shields from? Like, are they metaphysical? Like, are they, like, you conjure them? Like, is it based? Like,
scientists know that right now that they're looking at the idea of the string theory. The idea that depending on how the string vibrates, is how it forms physical reality. The same thing is true. That? Well, it's the same. It's pretty easy. We do it naturally. All I do is.
Can you explain, please? Because I kind of study these types of things.
Sure. The idea is that on the other side, spirits use this energy in order to create things. It's everywhere. And so I'm using that exact same energy. What I'm doing is I'm teaching people how to bring up this energy in greater amounts. We do it anyway, but in greater amounts in order, it's the same energy to create all these different kinds of shields that I teach people how to make, and also different weapons that they may need.
The shields are metaphoric, like, because I'm an energy worker myself.
They're not metaphoric. They're actually shields. We're actually creating them. They're just non-physical. Because here's the thing, we're using non-physical energies that we bring up from the other side in order to make non-physical. Let me finish. To make non-physical devices in order to affect other non-physical things like negative energy and negative spirits, which are all non-physical. So that's why the science works. We're not trying to roll a pencil across the table here. All we're trying to do is use energies out of essentially one particular kind of energy that can be transformed, much like scientists say, they're working on the string theory. That's as far as they've seen on the physical level. And so we're using the same energy as spirits do on the other side to create all of these different things. It all comes from one energy.
Right. What is that one energy? I refer to as source core consciousness within universal energy. I know it's a long word term, but where does this energy come from, Jeffrey?
It permeates all through the non-physical universe, what some people call heaven or the other side. It's not something you have to find. It's everywhere.
All right. Is that like multidimensionality?
Sure.
Or like the other side, I know channelers and all the rest, right? So what is this other side, please? The
other side is essentially the side of reality that is non-physical.
Reality that is not
Simple as that. Simple as that. It's
So
really
it's-
actually pretty simple. You know, we have the
energy,
physical
dark
and the
energy.
non-physical.
I'm trying to follow you here, Jeff.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that there's the physical universe and the non-physical universe. The non-physical universe, some people call heaven or the other side or all the different names people have for it. It doesn't
Right.
matter what you call it. We are actually in that realm at the moment because that is where our spirits are connected with and live, even though they're essentially inside of us. We have essentially human beings have two components, the spirit and the physical body. A spirit just has one component, meaning that it just simply has a non-physical body or one
Right.
that they generate and create that is held together, by natural force, meaning that the personality cannot be destroyed. There's
Mhm.
no force in the universe that can destroy a personality. It's held
Right.
together
So-
like super glue.
So, sorry, Jeff. Discernment. I find discernment comes in really key for humans. Like they hold a physicality. Okay, because our conscious. We were here. We were here before we were born. Our consciousness. Like this is my thoughts, right? I just like your introspect on this. And we existed before, like in energy form, right? Just not in the physicality form, right? And so we're sharing this time space here and now, right now together. Okay, yay, happy, joy. And then we die, we pass, and our bodies go to wherever it goes, right? And then our energy continues. Like I'm asking you this question. This is things that I'm really interested in.
Well, I'm not really saying that we go anywhere. I
No?
think that our physical body simply drops or lies in the
Yeah.
hospital bed or the road if you get hit by a truck or
Yeah.
a bus. But the idea is that our non-physical body really doesn't go anywhere until we actually propel ourselves towards where other spirits live.
Okay, where do the other spirits live, and how do we get there, please?
Just essentially by some
ascent.
people follow a light, but
Yeah.
actually you don't really have to do that.
No?
Sometimes spirit guides come down and kind of show you the way, but spirits actually congregate in certain areas that are away. The light, what people call the light, the tunnel, whatever, really is a beacon. It's not so much of a portal. It's more of a kind of a lighthouse. The idea of head away from the physical universe because people can't see you anyways. There's no point hanging around the earth.
How do humans, like the sheeples, I call them sheeples, lemmings or whatnot, the wanderers, right? The beacons, right? How do they recognize this? Because I recognize it through nature or through, like how again, coming back to discernment. How do humans discern, like, what is real, what is, like, please, I'm really trying to...
Well, it could be said that everything is real, that the physical universe is changing all the time. And the ancient Eastern philosophy they called it Maya, which meant illusion. The physical universe is illusion. That's really a misinterpretation. What they really meant was that it's ever changing. It all depends on, who is doing the, translation of the ancient books.
Okay, I got to ask you a question, Jeff. Sorry, I apologize.
That's what I'm here for.
All right, dream time. What's your opinions or perspectives or whatever on dream time? Because I get a lot of downloads. Like what's your opinion on downloads? Like a quote unquote downloads? Because I feel as though that I get a lot of downloads from like I call them my entities, my energy entities, right? My interdimensional buddies, all right? They give me a lot of downloads. And what's your thought on downloads? I'm sure you heard of that.
Well, it's happened to me. I think that these things do happen, and So
Right.
essentially, that when spirits communicate with each other, and when spirits communicate with human beings telepathically, it doesn't always come in the form of a linear thought process, meaning this is what I want you to do. Sometimes telepathy and good ideas and intuition can come in the form of whole sentences, whole paragraphs, or whole ideas at once. Now, I
Right,
think
so
dreams are real.
your
So
dreams, how do you dream, sir? Like, do you remember your dreams all the time? Like every
I
morning?
used to, but fortunately I don't anymore. I'm very happy about that because, enough stuff going on in the day. But I remember some of them, and that I really think that all dreams are real, but they are
Yeah.
not physical.
No,
So,
of course
so
not.
maybe
So why
50%.
did you drop your dreams? Like, why did you do that? Like, you're happy. Because sometimes my
Who said I
dreams-
was happy? I didn't say I was
Huh?
happy.
No, you said you're glad that you're not remembering them all the time anymore.
I didn't say that I was happy about remembering all my dreams.
Or would you like to again?
No.
No.
No,
Why
as a matter
not?
of fact, it was a real drag. But the idea is that because I had enough to do in the physical world.
I know, but don't you? Okay, for me,
You're
I get a lot
overseeing.
of-
I'd be overloaded like you're overloaded at the moment. You know what
No,
I'm saying
not
is that
overloaded.
I
I'm
think
just
you are.
asking-
You know what I'm saying is this. You know, you're asking me why I don't want too much information coming into me all at once,
Yeah.
and that kind of answers the question itself. It
Right,
overloads.
but overloaded with 3D distraction, correct? No.
I didn't say 3D.
Oh, what is it that then you? I was just asking questions, you know.
I understand, but what I'm saying is that personally, what I'm saying is something I couldn't control when I was young. As I grew older, I learned how to essentially, maybe subconsciously, forget a greater portion of my dreams because it was interfering in my daily physical life.
Okay.
It was like, waking up and remembering everything I did, and I couldn't get it out of my mind when I was 7 years old. And now that I'm 60, it's kind of like, well, I remember some of the things. I think all dreams are real, but they're just simply non-physical. And like I said before, that 50% or 75% of your consciousness might go out on these great adventures, and but part of you still remains focused on the physical world, even though you are sleeping. And that's why we seem to do these really weird things while we are dreaming. There's a science to it. Everything is explainable. Everything's explainable.
All right, I've consumed enough of your time, and thank you, Tessa, for taking my call.
That's fine.
I'm just going to mention to one thing to your audience, whatnot. They call me again, Dream Master. I lucid dream all the time, and whatever. You know what, Jeff? I look at my dreams as a curse at times, right? It's like being an empath or an intuitive or whatever like that. You always pick up stuff you really don't want. And I go through phases when I'm dreaming. I go through this is where I process before I dream, right before I sleep, because, your body wants to go to sleep, right? Got to rejuvenate. But my mind never shuts off. I process, and what I like to do, Jeff, is I'll process whatnot because, I'm kind of like conscious within my dreams. You have your unconscious, your subcon, right? And you've got your consciousness watching both of them, right? So, your subcon plays its games, right? You're playing your day's events, weekly event, whatever, things, questions on your mind. And then you get your unconscious, right? That's, for me, that's, my spirit body, if you want to mention, this.
Unconscious would not be the right term, because it's still conscious. You're just not remembering all of it, and there is such a thing as lucid dreaming.
I remember everything.
Well, I mean, there is. We do know about lucid dreaming, and these things happen to me too. The idea we could keep on going back into the same dream, and we finish these things off. But the consciousness, the mind, does not sleep.
No,
the body sleeps.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't need to. The mind is not physical. You don't need sleep. Spirits don't need to sleep.
No,
although they might repose and relax, they don't need to sleep.
Oh yeah, the brain is physical. The mind is it's like the soul.
The brain and the mind are two different things.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah. So unfortunately for me, I remember right, and so I use it as a tool for me because my interdimensional friendly entity buddies, right? We speak, we chat. They kind of like want to know what's going on Earth, physicality, and they share what's going on over on their side, and we have like time doesn't exist, like we were mentioning earlier, and like I'd be partying out there, not to make light of it, and I'd do like a full day out there in like outer space. Astral travel, if you want to go there, OBEs and all the rest of that. And then I'll come back, like 3 hours later, whatever. And yeah, man, it's like, it's totally different. I see things different, It's like, anyway, I don't want to get off topic.
Well, everybody sees things different, and that's a good thing, So the main thing is that you're comfortable with it and comfortable with yourself, and there's always room for each of us for improvement.
Yeah, man, for all the time. That's what we're here for as being humans, is to learn, grow, expand together. That's that's the way I look at it, man.
Yeah, and so like I said, that it's not good for everybody to remember all of their dreams, and for some people it happens once in a while. But like I said, in my particular case, and that's all I can really speak about, as far as my experiences, that it was very difficult on me when I was growing up and interfered in my waking life. And I'm glad that I was able to kind of shut that down to a certain degree. I still remember some of my dreams every night, or parts of them, but it's not like I remember every single thing that happened to me from the time I went to sleep. I'm very happy about that because there's enough going on in my waking life. And that was a problem. And it was kind of like when I talked about at the beginning of the show that I was able to tell my mother, when things would happen in the future, not major events, small stuff. Grandma's going to call tomorrow at 3:10, that kind of stuff. That stuff happened. And and that stuff faded after a while in my life. And also, there's a time when I used to communicate with spirits for other people, like essentially their loved ones who had passed on. I didn't like doing it because I always had a box of tissue paper on my table, and people would start crying, and I'd be like, what am I getting out of this? Am I really helping them? And so what I decided to do in my work was three or four things really well instead of 10 things not so well,
Right.
10 things half-assed, so to speak. You know what I mean? That essentially that you almost have to specialize. If you're a psychic, psychics know this. People who are in the business and people who just practice on their own. That it's almost.
Question, Jeff. People call you a psychic, or
I am a psychic. I was born with psychic abilities. I was able to see spirits from day one, and essentially people's souls, and the souls of animals and insects.
Do you consider that though as being a label, though?
What do you mean?
See, I get referred to a lot of being a lot of things. Like I'm a wizard, I'm a clairvoyant, I'm an empath, I'm a sensitive, So I should own the fact that people refer me to as being a channel and being a psychic.
What's the difference? What people call you? Be comfortable with yourself. Now, empathic. We're all empathic, and that essentially means that we can read things that touch our energy fields. One of the things that I try to teach people is that you can actually put up shields around yourself to protect yourself from negativity and also negative spirits, and also put your feelers up over those shields, through those shields, and still get the same information. And that way, let me finish. And they're not touching your energy fields. You see?
Okay.
And so being empathic means that essentially something has to touch your energy fields in order to get a reading. That means that whatever it is already got inside of your protection system. Now, we're all naturally empathic, but one of the things that I try to teach practitioners, or part of my clients, is that there are other ways to actually get information by sending out your psychic senses through the shields that I teach people how to create to get the same information.
Right.
You understand that?
Right. Again, Jeff, I don't want to pull too much out of you, but okay, I would really love for you to share some of these tools that you teach in regards to like the empaths, right? Again, you mentioned. How do you protect yourself again, please? See, I build walls. Like I do like a
we don't have time for me to explain all that in the time we have left. But let me just say this. Send me an email. I'll be happy to send you a link to my audiobook for free, and you can study it.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate, again, Tessa. Thank you for taking my call. And Jeff,
absolutely,
thank you for questions. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for calling in, Dennis. It was great to hear from you.
Thank you. Night-night. Thank you.
Nighty-night. Love and light. Yeah, and it is so hard to touch on all these subjects, and I feel like tonight we just kind of were at the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more that we can talk about. So I hope to someday have you back on the show to continue our conversation about these things, and I would as well really love to have your audiobook, because I am so interested in your gifts and what you do, and I admire you so much for the way that you do help those around you, and don't take advantage, because there are so many people out there that do take advantage and really overstep the parameters in which they should be working and doing.
Well, thank you, Tess. Starclear.com is my website, and that's got my Facebook on it, my LinkedIn, my YouTube stuff. Everything goes from my website, all my contact information. Be happy to send you and everybody else a copy of my audiobook for free who writes me. And so you're doing your part. I was a host of many radio shows about 10 years ago or so, and I was really awful at it. And you're good at it. I mean, I was terrible at it. Here's why. I absolutely had no interest in other people's businesses. I'm just being honest. I'm a very honest person. The problem was that I was busy developing StarClear. And then every week, I had several radio shows, and I would go and I'd interview people, and they were very talented, interesting people. But one thing I noticed was, and to be honest, I was not at all interested in their businesses, because I was so much trying to get my business or my work and going properly and get it out to the world, because my work, StarClear, is a worldwide service. It's not a United States service. And so I just was what happened was that 10 minutes before the radio show, I would just go to the person's website, look up what they do, and some of them were very famous people, and I would just say, so you work with acupressure, or this or that, or you're a psychic reader. Can you explain more about it? That's I never read their books. I never really studied their website, and some of the more discerning people who are on for been on a lot of radio and television shows, and they knew it. They could just tell. It's like you don't know anything about me, do you? I've even had a couple people call me out on it and say, you really don't know anything about my work, do you? And I'm like, no. I mean, it's true. I didn't lie and say, I have read your book.
Right.
And I found that, some people make really good radio hosts, and some people just simply are better at simply answering questions like me. So I just didn't like it, and ended up doing more musical shows. After a while, StarClear Radio and other radio shows that I did simply turned into musical shows where I'd play, rock bands and stuff, and which is my favorite kind of music, progressive rock and all that. And I don't do this all the time. I mean, I do this, for, part of the time, but I go to a lot of concerts, and I always have. And so, and music, I love music. I'm a collector. And so there's a lot more to me than people might think. But
yeah,
the
I love
idea
music
is
as
that
well, and I
go ahead.
love pushing people's music. And we have certain genres we love, like you're saying, rock, classic rock, so on and so forth. That's the type of girl I am too. But I love all different kinds of music. There's different music for every mood, and I just love everybody's individual gifts. And music to me is so important. And
Negative spirits hate music. They hate it. I mean, absolutely, because it strikes. This is sound, and sound affects living people and also spirits. And so one of the things I tell people is that if you play some positive music, or whatever you consider to be positive, even heavy metal, whatever, anything, it doesn't matter. The idea is if you play music that you like, you can be sure that negative spirits will not like it. It actually breaks up their negative energy. They become weaker. And so music is very, very powerful. All kinds of music.
yeah, I hate when people ask me, well, what's your favorite type of music? And I just revert back to music. Do I have to pick just one?
Right, because I go to all different kinds. I've been to probably a little bit less than 1,000 concerts in my life.
Oh, wow.
And I still go to. I have 3 coming up this weekend, and I'm just saying that rock concerts and with famous bands, and essentially that it's important. And I go to heavy metal concerts. I go to regular rock concerts. I like symphony music. I even like a little bit of country rock type of stuff. But it doesn't really matter what I like. It's what you like and what the other person likes. I mean, the important thing is that music is really powerful and wonderful. And there's so many things we can do to try to keep our houses and our living environments safe. And music is one of them, because negative spirits are really miserable creatures. And if we can make them more miserable, it's fine with me. It's not our job. I'm not a spirit psychologist. It's not my... Other spirits help spirits that have problems. It's not my job. I don't try to figure them out. So the idea is just to keep them away. And one of the ways we can, kind of help that along is through music. Very important.
Very, very important. And I've said several times, music is the universal language. You don't have to understand what they're saying to get the message. And Sandra in the chat room was saying music is everything, which I really agree. It's really, really good medicine. But on that note, we are at the end of our time. And I just wanted to say thank you so much again for being my guest tonight, Jeffrey. It was awesome having you on Late Night in the Rockies on We Are Paradox Media.
It was great. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Tess. It was just wonderful.
And I wanted to thank all of our listeners on We Are Paradox Media, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you may be listening in the Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend, where we have Psychic Chris Garcia and a surprise guest. Don't forget, you guys, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and don't work too hard. And I hope to see you back here next weekend. Don't forget, we have shows all throughout the week. We have Sleepy Dave Davenport, Sam, Kevin, Ian Beagle, a show for every day of the week. So make sure you tune in. And you can catch our past shows on YouTube at We Are Paradox Media. Don't forget to join us for our after party on Skype at 1-970-335-9596. Or you can look me up at Tessa Thomas-Peterson. Hope to see you guys there. Take care of my yous.